Welcome to Living Well with MS. This podcast comes to you from Overcoming MS, the world's leading multiple sclerosis healthy lifestyle charity, which helps people live a full and healthy life through the Overcoming MS program. We interview a range of experts and people with multiple sclerosis. Please remember, all opinions expressed are their own. Don't forget to subscribe to Living Well with MS on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And now, let's meet our guest.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Living Well with MS podcast. Today, we're talking about sophrology for MS with Audrey Zannese. So, Audrey has a BSc in biology, an MSc in analysis and modelling of ecological data, and a PhD in biological sciences, investigating the impact of environmental perturbations on population dynamics and evolution of life history traits. I think I got all that right.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Isn't exactly what we're talking about, though. So some of those things, that's an introduction to the academic side of things. But we're going to be talking about sophrology, which I think a lot of people won't be fully aware of what it is. So we're going to talk about that a bit. And Audrey has found a way to still be involved in research by delivering intervention to get sophrology more evidence-based. So welcome to the podcast, Audrey.
Thank you very much.
Could you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your career, your MS journey, and yourself?
Yes, absolutely. So yes, I'm Audrey Zannese, and you may have picked it up already. I come from France, and my career and my MS journey are very closely intertwined. So I'll go back to the start. From an early age, I wanted to be a vet, but not a vet for pets. I wanted to be a vet to save endangered species. So as this dream evolved, I did that degree in biology, a specialization in ecology. And after 4 years, I had the opportunity to do a placement for a year in a research lab where I ended up analyzing a big data set. And that's where I came to the realization that ecology is actually quite a quantitative field and that it probably would be a smart move for me to develop the quantitative skills. So instead of going into conservation biology, I decided to do that master's in analysis and analysis and modeling of ecological data. And that's where the MS journey starts. That master's was really a steep learning curve for me because statistics, mathematics were not my preferred subjects, but I did manage to go through it. I worked my socks off. It was really stressful, and I remember I barely slept through the exam period, and about a week or two after the exam, I go to bed and I wake up the next day and I am entirely blind in my left eye. So big panic. My parents rushed me to hospital. I have tests done. I have steroid infusion. And for the first time, doctors mentioned multiple sclerosis to me. But the diagnosis wasn't firmed up because the tests were not entirely conclusive. So they wanted me to do further tests, to which my family and I said, no, thank you. We were not ready to hear this. I was 24 years old at the time. I was so career driven, so ambitious, so focused. MS didn't have any place in that plan. So I had a perfect explanation for what had happened. I had exerted myself with the masters, worked too hard. My body had a glitch. Okay, I was recovering. It was fine. And I carried on. So then I came to the UK to do a PhD at the University of Leeds. And after the first year of PhD, I did my first conference where I presented a poster, and I was all excited and all nervous as well. And after the conference, I had another relapse with the other eye. Not as bad, but concerning enough that I said, okay, I need to get to the bottom of this. I need to be sure. So did further tests, and the diagnosis of MS was confirmed. Now, what did I do? Well, I buried my head into the sand once more. I put a lid on it, and I said, okay, now I know it is MS, fine, I'm going to manage. But the definition of insanity, like I didn't change anything. I just carried on hoping it would go away. And guess what? A year later, another relapse. So that's where it hit me. I realized, okay, this is MS, this is real, this is not going away. And the realization, what are going to be the consequences for me, for my life, for my work? And at that point, so the fear rushed in, and they had told me I should be taking a treatment, and I thought, okay, it's probably the most rational thing to do. I'm going to start the treatment. So I was at the time doing the PhD in the UK. I put the PhD on hold for a few weeks, came back to France to be with my family to start the treatment. And I met a French neurologist who recommended Sophrology to me. Now that's where I think the next step of my journey started.
So can you give us a bit of an introduction? What is sophrology in broad terms? I know we're going into more detail.
Sure. So, yes, I just want to say actually for your audience, when the neurologist mentioned sophrology to me, sophrology in France is as popular as mindfulness in the UK.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of knew what he was talking about, but I was also, I had never done things like relaxation, meditation. And for me, the kind of quantitative scientist, very rational, very skeptical, let's say, when he said sophrology, I was gobsmacked because I was just like, what is this stuff? How is that supposed to help? But because he was a doctor and because I realized I was also in a bad place, I couldn't stay where I was. Really, fear was overwhelming. I decided to give it a try. So if I try to be concise about what sophrology is, I would define it as a uniquely structured mind-body practice that combines both Western relaxation methods and Eastern meditative practices. And it can be used for personal development, enhancing performance, but also improving health and well-being. Basically, how it works is that it's this variety of exercises that are really accessible and easy to incorporate in your daily life. So it's very versatile. There is gentle body movements, there are breathing exercises, there are aspects of mindfulness and meditation. There is also some principles of positive psychology, and really you can use it on the go as you need, in your day-to-day life. And you can go a long way as well with practicing 10 to 15 minutes a day. It doesn't take too much time. It's very adapted, I think, for our Western societies.
So is there similarities with Tai Chi and those sort of Eastern ideas of that there's movement alongside mindfulness?
Yeah, I think sophrology is really that comprehensive framework that combines many different modalities. So there are elements of movement meditation, as you would find in Tai Chi, Qigong, or yoga. It's loosely derived from yoga. There are elements of mindfulness and meditation. There is also this guided imagery and positive imagery, perhaps contrary to mindfulness and meditation. With sophrology, we don't necessarily stay in the here and now, although that's where we start, but we might also revisit the past in a constructive way, or taking what's positive from the past. We might also project ourselves into the future. There are techniques that involve breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, autogenic training, and there is value work as well in sophrology. So it's really the way it is structured that makes it unique, and how accessible and easy to use in your day-to-day. I think that makes it, again, unique.
What's the history of it? Has it been around for a long time? You said it in France is more common. Is it?
Yes.
Is it from France?
It is not from France. It was actually developed by a neuropsychiatrist called Alfonso Caicedo in 1960s in Spain. But he spoke French, which is how it migrated to France and introduced it to the French audience. So just to put things into context there, Spain in the 1960s, we are post the Spanish Civil War, we are post World War II, and we are under Franco's regime, so it's dictatorship. And Caicedo had to deal with a lot of PTSD patients. And at the time, the treatments, they were quite intrusive. Insulin-induced comas, electric shocks. And he was trying to find a more humane way to relieve his patients. And that's where he found, I think, his life work and passion, which was the study of consciousness, because for him, that was the key to help his people, to help them integrate mind and body. And he had this theory that, that we already have different levels of consciousness, whether we are awake or relaxed or asleep, and that matches with the pattern in our brain waves. But he was also seeing consciousness as this integrative force that could be worked and developed upon, and seeing at one end, people who are so dissociated with themselves that they are in a state of literally split consciousness, which is schizophrenia. And that at the other end, it was possible to, again, bring that balance and integration between body and mind, and you would be in a state of harmonious consciousness. And he came up with this word, sophrenia, against schizophrenia. And that's where it derives sophrology from Greek words that means logos, the study of, phren, consciousness, and source harmony, sophrology.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So when you explain it, that makes sense, because schizophrenia is
split consciousness.
Break it down into the parts of the etymology, don't you see? When we're talking about mindfulness, meditation, it's not counter to those. It's just a part of a whole picture of different techniques that can be used.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I want to say that when I explain sophrology, of course, I am very biased by the fact that I have a lot of experience of practicing sophrology, much more than I have of practicing mindfulness or meditation. So there are, of course, commonalities and differences between the two techniques. And I'm not here to say sophrology is the best or that is absolutely what you should do. At the end of the day, what is the most important is that people try, experiment, explore, and they find the method that works best for them. That's really what I advocate. But I think sophrology deserves to be one of the modalities that is more known in the UK world because, again, of the accessibility and ease of use of it. So you're right that it fits. For me, mindfulness and meditations are kind of included already in sophrology. As I said, perhaps sophrology is a bit more comprehensive in the sense that we have also value work and we don't necessarily stay in the here and now. Also, I would say that the aim with sophrology is to help you reconnect with yourself, build that self-awareness of how you are feeling inside, and help you build that capacity to regulate your internal state, but also build the capacity, as you would find in mindfulness and meditation, of acceptance and letting go when things cannot be changed. And through this work that is repetitive, and it's very much a practice like mindfulness and meditation, you get to this place where you are feeling much more balanced in terms of your mind, body, emotions, and you are in a place where you are feeling more capable of, or more conscious, developing your consciousness, more conscious of your state, who you are, you as a being, and how you want to live your life. So it's this method that really gives you empowerment and agency, because I always say sophrology ultimately is that way of living. It's like I become the subject of my life rather than being subjected to life. But similar principles of, being in the experience with no judgment, with no expectations. And having said that, at the same time with sophrology, we are a bit more intentional. So if people experience something positive that they perceive as positive during a session, we help them focus and incorporate that even more. So that then through the practice in your day-to-day life, it starts permeating this ability to focus perhaps more on positive rather than negative, which, clearly is something I had a very big tendency to do, and I think is quite natural for everybody to do.
It does seem like on a personal journey that your initial episodes of multiple sclerosis were after quite stressful events, and so there's
absolutely.
We don't know, but there does tend to be that connection, doesn't there? There's like a lot of people, if there's sort of bereavement, they might have events after that, or if there's major, and it can be anything. Just there are a lot of stress hormones going, because it could be an exciting thing, or it could be a tragic thing, or it could be something's causing all those stress hormones to fire.
Yes, and that's where sophrology has been key for me to start with. It's been that capacity to regulate the emotions, the stress, and the internal state, and to sense when I was pushing too much, and avoid going, I think, into another relapse or a flare-up. I actually, between 2004 and 2007, I had 5 different relapses, but 2 of them I wasn't aware of until afterwards. I didn't realize they were linked to MS. But if I look again where they happened again after times of exertion. One was after the interview for the PhD. Another was after I had done something really physical and quite stressful at the time. So you're right, anything could throw you off. But if you realize that you have this capacity to, calm the system, actually, yes, that gives you that agency.
And so how did you switch from being a research scientist into a sophrologist?
Yes, that's an interesting shift, and actually it took its time. Well, if I may, I'm just going to go back to when I started practicing sophrology. I think that's the best way to carry on with the sophrology journey and my journey as a scientist at the time, what happened. So 2007, I start practicing, and what I notice is that it helps me regulate my stress level, and it's something I can do. And I start practicing on a very regular basis, almost every day, for 2 to 3 years. And what I've noticed is not only did I feel a lot calmer, I think I realized afterwards it really helped with the side effects of the treatment for me. And also, without realizing sophrology was responsible for that, I felt, as I said, much more confident and optimistic about my life. Like, I remember one day I came out of my flat and I was so happy to be alive. All of a sudden, I didn't fear MS anymore. I wasn't scared. I knew I had everything in me to live my best life in a way I had never been before when I was healthy. It's when I look back, I look with compassion, but to realize that through this journey, I realized what it was to really be happy. And so this happened, and then I completed my PhD, and then I got a postdoc at UEA. And I don't know whether it was a transition, but, I got a bit out of my routine. And also, I was very skeptical. I was keeping skeptical. I was just like, well, I don't think sophrology is so responsible for how well I feel, and surely it's okay. So I started practicing less and less, and I stopped altogether. What happened at that time is that I started experiencing side effects for the treatment in a way I had never experienced them before. And that snowballed. They became worse and worse and worse. And until one night it became so bad that there was a breaking point where I said, okay, I don't know what to do anymore. I had spoken to the neurologist about it. They said, take some painkillers. So I was just like, yeah, I'm going to try my sophrology again. And I wasn't sure. You see, I'm still skeptical when I was in that state. I was just like, I'm going to try. I don't know. But actually, after a few weeks of practice, the side effects of the treatments receded. Now, it's not that I didn't experience side effects before. It's just I wasn't putting my focus on it. I was breathing through them, and they were not taking all part of my life. Whereas afterwards, I started to have bad experiences, then another. And then I started to become apprehensive about it. And then I just amplified those side effects with the stress levels and the emotions a lot more. So here I had a good experience of what it means to tap in the power of your mind-body connection. So that happened. But then I'm a very imperfect human being. And so I went out of practice again. So what happened during the postdoc, there was a year that was quite intense, and I had a bad relapse. And I experienced fatigue for several weeks. And I took that decision that really, sophrology had to become an integral part of my life, because I realized if I want to do the things I want to do, I need to be well, and I need to practice sophrology. And then I also probably realized there was a mix of reasons, but academia wasn't going to be the path for me. So the natural conclusion was, if I want to make sophrology an integral part of my life, what best way than to become a sophrology practitioner? And that's how it started, to be honest. It was really a very selfish move. It was really to help myself, first of all. But then it has led to me helping others who are now in similar situation where I was at the time. So,
and so as you've got a scientific background, has there been research into sophrology, and actually have there been clinical trials? Because it's becoming more mainstream, certainly the mindfulness side of things. I mean, certainly when I was growing up, it was considered to be in a section of things along with having crystals and things like this, that, it was almost frowned upon. And then that's certainly not the case anymore. And it's we have doctors talk to us about it, and it's people, academics are studying the effects of mindfulness and these different techniques actually on people's health. So there's definitely, it's not an alternative therapy anymore. It's maybe a complementary therapy, but certainly not alternative. So have there been clinical trials into sophrology?
So I'm going to be, because I am a scientist, and I will be honest and transparent. Today, I cannot tell you that sophrology is evidence-based. We don't have enough studies. The quality of the studies is not sufficient. It's interesting because in France, it is really popular. It started spreading in the medical world, in clinical settings, before then going into other environments like schools and sports and corporate world. And I don't know why the French doctors didn't do more studies, but we're starting to see some studies, but today I couldn't say it's evidence-based. However, I could tell you that all the modalities upon which it is influenced and that are incorporated in sophrology are evidence-based. So yes, you're right. We're saying the evidence for mindfulness and meditation. We're saying the evidence for movement meditation, Qigong, Tai Chi, and yoga, and also for positive psychology intervention, for progressive muscle relaxation. We know how important it is to work with our breathing and to learn to breathe properly for our health and well-being. So all these elements are evidence-based, part of sophrology, but sophrology itself isn't. But in the last 5 years, there's been quite a few studies that have come out. So in particular, there's been a randomized controlled trial that showed that sophrology significantly reduced the symptoms of anxiety and depression. And then in the sector of health, hospital, there's been some studies that have shown that sophrology is good at reducing stress and then discomfort or pain for certain intervention and procedures. So there was a study that was observational, but looking at cancer patients undergoing into radiology procedures, and there's been positive effects there. And then a randomized controlled trial for people who had acute respiratory failure. And they found that with sophrology, the people were having less discomfort in terms of using the equipment. And then they have lesser difficulty to breathe. There was a study as well on the impact of sophrology with people with tinnitus. And the result is that people find that they find the tinnitus less intrusive. So I think there is scope for sophrology, and we want to build the evidence base. But I think exactly as you said, it will take the same path as mindfulness, meditation, and those other modalities. Clearly, the key is always about building this capacity to regulate your internal state, to quieten the mind, to calm the body, to manage the emotions, but also building, as I said, that capacity to be in the acceptance and letting go, so that you can be with the experience when it cannot be controlled or changed in a much more peaceful way.
Okay. So I mean, it does seem to be it's something that would be worth trying as a very parallel thing to things like Tai Chi and Qigong, and that if you're, because they do. I mean, I like that idea of it because it does help. I mean, certainly like Tai Chi practice, it doesn't help with my cardio, but it helps with balance, and it helps so that there is something about the flow sort of thing going on, and I've certainly found it. And I was doing it. I had a holiday at Easter time, and it by coincidence there was a mindfulness guy there. They did mindfulness camps where we were staying, which I didn't realize at the time. And it was just when we got there, and he said, "Oh yeah, we're not doing one now," but he did a daily practice. So we had an hour each day. We had an hour of mindfulness and an hour of Tai Chi, and there was no one else really there doing it. So I said to the private guy, it was amazing. It was right by the beach and everything. But I was just finding amazing things. Like I was finding my leg was working better, but it was no logic behind it. And there is something about this sort of it was that movement combined with mindfulness that was working for me. But I've not tried sophrology, so I'll be very interested as another thing.
Yes,
to try.
Absolutely.
I think it's one of these people talk about a toolkit. I think it's good to have all these different things in your toolkit because some things work differently and work well for other people. And I think it's a personal thing, isn't it? You get the best.
Absolutely.
Solution.
Absolutely. It's important that you find what works for you.
One of the people actually who does a lot of the OMS retreats, Veronique, she's a yoga instructor, and she just has so many things ticked off. She goes, well, she already does sort of movement, mindfulness, diet. She's got so many things, and she said that there's a lot of things, but you can do them in different ways. But actually, don't just think about them in boxes. You can think about the movement and the mind and the body and eating, and they're all one.
Absolutely. Thing. But that's what I discovered with my own practice is that, I didn't do any other lifestyle changes. I mean, didn't pursue any other active lifestyle changes. It naturally occurred from the process of reconnecting with myself, and that naturally led itself to me doing more exercise or eating slightly differently, being more in tune with what resonates with my body or not. And
And so would it be possible for you to give us a short sophrology practice as an example?
Yes. So I was planning to do one sitting down to accommodate if there are people in wheelchairs with mobility issues, but also wanting to say that if you'd rather do some of that session standing up, you have that freedom because sophrology is very free. It's about listening to yourself, doing what's right for you. So if you don't want to be sitting, you can stand up, but have your chair behind because we'll be sitting through the session. And we're going to start with simple awareness of our body, our breathing, just making ourselves present. Then I'm going to invite you to do a neck movement. So perhaps if we are at the back of the chair, just bringing ourselves a bit up so that we have the space to do the movement. And we're going to do a little up and down movement. And we're going to really be sensing how far we want to stretch the movement. So there is no recommendation other than listening to how your body feels. And then we'll go into a no movement, from side to side. Okay. Then we are going to come back to center. I'm going to do some little pauses in between the exercises, just so that you check and tune in to whether you experience any sensations. So again, no expectations to be had. If you feel nothing at all, that's your experience and it's valid. Don't start thinking to yourself, am I doing this wrong because I don't feel anything? That's the interpretation. That's what we don't want. Staying with the experience, but if you experience something that you perceive as positive, taking this opportunity to reinforce and incorporate that, as well as welcoming whatever other messages could be appearing. After this neck exercise, we're gently going to close our hands into gentle fist, and we're going to bring our shoulders up while we breathe in. We're going to hold and clench and breathe out, release. I'm going to invite you to do this 3 times, and then I will invite you to do a visualization around the color. So you don't have to think about the color right now. You can let it come when the session is, and bearing in mind that if there is no color or there is nothing coming, it's okay. Just stay with your body, stay with your presence, and wait through the end of the session. And if any of the exercises I've just said don't feel right, you don't have to do them. Yeah? Okay. So let's start. Inviting you to find a position that you're comfortable in. So whether you're sitting, whether you decide to stand, making sure that you find your space, your comfortable place. And if you're okay with that, you can close the eyes. If closing the eyes is not feeling comfortable, just lowering your gaze and resting your gaze in front of you. And taking this minute for noticing how you are placed, feeling the feet perhaps on the floor or the verticality of your spine. If you are sitting, the points of contact between your body and the chair. And taking this moment to make any adjustments that you feel you'd like to do as you are starting to gently reconnect with your body, its posture, having the freedom to make yourself as comfortable as is possible right now. Allowing your body to breathe freely. Noticing the flow of air coming in and out without having to change anything. Letting it happen. And if it happens to change while you are observing this movement, that's fine. Staying with this. Bringing your attention to your head, your face. Noticing this part of the body. As it is today, how does it stand on top of your neck? How do you experience it? Heavy, light? Then moving down to your neck, your throat, your shoulders, perhaps letting the shoulders drop a little, if that's possible. Your arms, your forearms, your hands, your fingers. Again, just an awareness of how we experience this part of the body, how do we know it's there. On the next out breath, I invite you to bring your attention to your chest, to your upper back, welcoming the space in between the chest and the upper back. Moving down to your belly, your lower back, noticing the presence of that space. And moving down to the lower part of your body. From your hips and pelvis to your legs to your feet. How does this part of the body manifest today? How does it appear to you? Awareness of your whole body. Now I'm going to invite you to perhaps move forward on your seat if you want to do that first exercise, but remember that at any point you are free to adjust your posture. And once you find the balanced position, I invite you to start moving your head up and down. Breathing freely and starting with a small movement and letting it expand as you wish. Really being present to what's happening in the back of the head, your neck, perhaps your shoulders, so that you stretch this movement in a way that is just fine for you. You go at the pace you want, the amplitude you want. If at any point this becomes uncomfortable or you feel dizzy, stop the movement. Remember, you don't have to do anything that makes you uncomfortable. And sometimes we hear little cracks or clicks as the joints get activated. It's okay, as long as it's feeling all right, comfortable, you can carry on. Feeling your head moving into space, letting the movement happen, being in the sensations. And letting your head come back into center. As it comes back into center, we're going to do a gentle side-to-side movement. And we start small again and we let it stretch. Being really mindful of the sensations in the neck area, shoulder area. We let our body show us what's right for us today. Maybe we want to go very slowly, maybe we want to go a bit more quickly. Remembering to breathe as we do this exercise. And letting the head come back into center position. Just taking a little pause now to see whether we perceive any particular sensations into our body. There could be some more sensations around the neck area, or perhaps not. Could be a tingle, an itch, could be a yawn. This is just a time to welcome what is, with no expectation, no judgment, just being present. Perhaps we feel lighter, heavier, cooler, warmer. Maybe more awareness of the presence of our head than other parts of the body, maybe not. Maybe nothing at all. Now I'm going to invite you to place your arms by your side. And we're going to start by bringing our hands into gentle fists. And what we're going to do is that we're going to breathe in, lift the shoulders up, contract as far or as little as we want, holding the breath a little, and then we'll breathe out and let the shoulders drop open our hands. And we'll do that 3 times. So hands into gentle fist, breathe in, shoulders up. Hold, gently tense, and let go, release. Letting the shoulders drop, the hands open as fully as possible. Now you can do this exercise very physically, or if you wish, you could imagine releasing particular tensions you may have, whether it's physical, mental, emotional. I'll let you decide whether there is something that you like to release. Let's do this a second time. Let's bring our hands into gentle fists. Let's breathe in, lift the shoulders up and contract. Hold. Mobilize your tensions and release them when you're ready. Allowing the shoulders to drop, the hands to open, feeling this, what's happening inside, deciding how you're going to do this movement a third time. Hands into gentle fists. When you're ready, breathe in, lift the shoulders up. Hold, tense. And release when you're ready. You can sit comfortably, bring back your hands perhaps onto your lap and take a moment to acknowledge whether there are any particular sensations in the body. Maybe more sensations around the shoulders area, maybe not. Maybe something that you perceive as positive. And if that's not the case, it's okay. Just being present to what is right now. Now I'd like to invite you to let a color come to your mind. Beautiful color. Something that you'd be happy to work with for today. It might be that that color presents itself in front of you. And if that's the case, you can take a little time to notice its brightness, or whether it's rather soft. It might come as a shape, an object. It may even come as a taste or a smell. However it is, bringing to mind a color that feels good for you in this moment. And if there are several colors coming up, you could decide to work with several, or you can pick one. If there is nothing at all, choose a color that you prefer. Again, in whatever shape it comes to you. And start to notice with this color what it is that's good about it. How does it feel? Is it like a color that you like because it's very bright? Is it joyful? Perhaps it feels comforting or soothing? Maybe healing? I'm going to invite you to find a way to let this color completely surround you. Maybe you imagine yourself in a bubble made of that color. Maybe you decide to bathe in the color. Perhaps this color is wrapping around you like a soft blanket. Whatever works for you. Imagining this beautiful color all around you, surrounding you, wrapping itself around you. How does it feel? What does this color bring? And I'm going to invite you to, each time you're breathing, find a way to invite this color inside. And each time you breathe out, let it flow, let it expand into your body. Let it go where it needs to go today. Breathing in, you invite the color in, maybe through your breath, or maybe it's permeating through the pores of your skin. And breathing out, it's traveling, filling you up with its positive energy. This color inside you, what does it bring? Is it balancing? Is it invigorating? Does it bring brightness? Does it bring happiness? Does it bring something else, much more soothing, much more calming? Carry on for a few moments, breathing in, invite the color, breathing out. Let it sink into the body. Noticing how it feels inside. Perhaps it's going to certain parts more than others. Maybe there are certain parts of your body that need this color a bit more. You can control with your breath how much of it you take in, where you send it. Perhaps you let yourself be completely filled up with a color, even reaching the extremities. And we're not going to keep hold of the sensations that this color has brought to us, of how we are feeling inside, but now gently we're going to let the color go and fade away. And we're going to take one final pause to sense what's happening inside. How am I feeling? Physically, emotionally, mentally right now? What's there? What do I want to welcome? Sensations, perceptions, feelings. Perhaps a sense of quietness. Perhaps a sense of well-being or energy. Again, perhaps a sense of heaviness, lightness. Okay, we're going to prepare ourselves to come back. Perhaps before opening the eyes, start gently activating your body, stretching, taking a couple of deep breaths to really bring yourself back into the room. And when you are ready, you can open the eyes. How was that?
I thought that was very good. I particularly noticed that when the breathing out quickly, just after that, just felt a really nice. I don't know, it's hard to describe, but that was a really good feeling. Sort of letting something go, I suppose.
Okay,
but
thank you.
So it's difficult to get back into interview mode. Actually, I've done that before. But I would like to say, so is there a lot of resources available? And we'll put anything on in the show notes, so people should check out the show notes. But is it something where it's good to do a practice with a guided practice with someone?
Yes, so I can give you a few resources. Actually, I'd like to mention something that I didn't mention when we discussed the studies, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, of
So I've got two hats. I've got my sophrology practitioner hat, and I've got my personal practice where I mainly help people living with chronic illness, pain, fatigue, but also anxiety and overwhelm and burnout. But I'm also the education director of the Sophrology Academy, which is one school in the UK teaching people to become sophrology practitioners. And as part of the academy, I was given this opportunity to lead an 8-week pain management intervention to assess the impact of sophrology on the on adults living with chronic pain. So there was a study that was carried by Professor Caroline Lafarge, who is a professor at the University of West London in psychology, but she's also director of research now at the academy. And there was this master students, Lottie Chatfield, who did this study. And we did it as a randomized controlled trial. And again, we found that sophrology is having positive impact in terms of quieting the mind, reducing all the catastrophization parameters. But what I found also very interesting with that study was that we saw a decrease in the pain levels, but not significant between, significant interaction between the decrease with the control and the intervention, the treatment. But what was really significant was how the decrease in pain medication by the treatment group. And that, for me, really encapsulates what sophrology is about and what I think any mind-body practices are about, and what we were discussing about complementary therapy, that we're not going to magic the pain away. If you have neuropathic damage, once your nerve has recovered as much as it can recover, you're not going to magic that away. That's not the aim. But by regulating, again, your mind, quieting your mind, your body, your emotions, you are capable of changing the relationship and the experience you have with the pain or the conditions that you live with. So that's something I thought I should mention, because I didn't mention that study. It's not published yet. We are in the process of getting it published, but I thought it was important. And then in terms of the resources, I wanted to mention that I'm education director of the Sophrology Academy, so that I can pinpoint people to different resources. So if you want to know more about sophrology and my practice, of course, you can find me. I've got my own website, stepintosophrology.co.uk, and I'm also on Facebook, on Instagram, and LinkedIn. But there is also the website of the Sophrology Academy, where people can find resources, and they can find a directory as well of sophrologists who trained with us. So, that's another resource. Now, in terms of what I offer, I have a guide about how to tap into the power of the mind-body connection. And that's a bit the story I was explaining to you with the side effects of the treatments. And the fact that we have this capacity to either amplify an experience, it could be pain, it could be anxiety, it could be anything, or reduce it. And in that particular guide, I give a 4-step plan that people can implement straight away to start tapping into their mind-body connection. So, of course, I explain as well about sophrology and why I think sophrology is such a good method to implement this 4-step plan. But I just want your audience to know that you are ready to go. If you listen to this, you get the 4 steps. You can choose whichever method is right for you. I don't mind, but start practicing and start implementing today.
Okay, with that, so I would encourage everyone to check out the show notes. There'll be links to all the resources for Audrey. And yes, just to say thank you very much for joining us, Audrey Zannese.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Living Well with MS. Please check out this episode's show notes at overcomingms.org/podcast. You'll find useful links and bonus information there. Have questions or ideas to share? Email us at podcast@overcomingms.org, or you can reach out to Jeff on Twitter @JeffAlex. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for tuning in, and see you next time for tips on living a full and happy life with MS.